Pokemon Champions could be the best thing to happen to Pokemon ever. And I'm not actually saying this as an exaggeration. In my opinion, if what Wolf says is, or not says, predicts or is hoping comes true, we could be looking at a division between the PvE and the PvP side of Pokemon. This would allow players like myself, who really only care about the PvE side of things, to get games that are more focused on the creativity and PvE side of things. You know, when you make a game that has both PvE and PvP in it, you got to balance for both sides. And unfortunately, that tends to cause a division between gamers that prefer one side or the other, because if they were to, let's say, nerf a bunch of interesting Pokemon or abilities in Pokemon or like moves in Pokemon, you have it where that's going to annoy the PvE side of things. But on the PvP side of things, they're going to be happy because it's like, okay, now that's not broken. I don't have to play that Pokemon in every single one of my teams if I want to stay competitive. You know, you have situations like that occurring where you will have more options for the PvE side of things, and at the same time, the balance for the PvP side of things, if it gets split off into Pokemon Champions, the PvP and the pro level competitive scene would be able to have what they want as well. And that's what I want personally, is both groups to be happy, because if both groups are happy and both groups are getting what they want in their Pokemon games, they can, get more content. The more like successful each game is, the more the more chance for adding more creativity to the Pokemon side of things. Like, I use Pokemon Legends of Arceus as a prime example of that. That was like the first Pokemon game that I played like that heavily since Pokemon Platinum. I've dabbled in Pokemon since then, but had never really got anywhere. Maybe like an hour or two into some of the Pokemon games on the 3DS, but I didn't really get into it that far. And, on the Switch, didn't really get into any other Pokemon games. But Legends of Arceus is one of the go-to Pokemon games. It was honestly one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. Didn't have a PvP scene. Now imagine if you can play Pokemon Champions if you want the PvP side of things, and the mainline Pokemon games doesn't have a PvP side of things, and it's just single player story. Well, now you have the option to take that mainline game and the next Pokemon Legends game into, you'd be able to be more creative with it. You have a little bit more liberties, can get a little bit more wacky, overpowered, make the actual legendary Pokemon more powerful. Heck, here's another thing that we could look into. You look at typical JRPGs where, how powerful the bosses are. You could actually get into more boss Pokemon territory for turn-based. Imagine if you're fighting, let's just say a legendary Pokemon, and instead of having, like a couple hundred health or whatnot, it's like 10,000 health or 20,000 health. Because guess what? It doesn't matter if that Pokemon is overpowered, because there's no PvP aspects to it. You can get a little wacky. You can change it up. You can change the formula. You can mess with it, and maybe find something that could actually make Pokemon even more interesting on the PvE side of things. There's room for experimentation. Like, more room for experimentation, I should say. So that is what I hope. I'm going to be real, though. I don't expect it to happen, because that makes sense. Opening up the room for, to expand upon your Pokemon franchise, do more spin-off games, experiment, maybe find a new formula that could be really, really good for that Pokemon fans really enjoy. I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because I do want more Pokemon spin-off games, more PvE focused Pokemon games like in the mainline series or based on the mainline series, where they're able to get a little bit more wacky, a little bit more out there with what they can do, and not really have to focus on balancing on the PvP side of things. And a good example of this would actually be Elden Ring. They eventually, after a certain amount of time, I can't remember if it was like a year or so after the game released, they put their patches separately. So, for example, let's just say you had a sword. They nerf it. They have a patch that nerfs it in the PvP settings. So that means when you're fighting other players, it's not going to perform as well. But if you're in the PvE and you're fighting a big, tough boss, that weapon that was like really powerful against it can still destroy that boss. You wouldn't have to worry about it being nerfed there. And that is something that could theoretically come to Pokemon if they do it correctly. That's just my hopes. I didn't really think too much of it until Wolf put a video out talking about it, and I'm like, that would be so freaking cool. I would be so happy and ecstatic if they did that. Like, honestly, the potential for Pokemon would, in my opinion, go through the roof for at least the PvE side of things. So, anywho, that's it. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Let me know what you guys think. Would you guys like to see something like that happen in the future? Yeah. Peace.